To one and all, on behalf of Indus International Research Foundation, I welcome you in the third session of the webinar series on important battles of Indian subcontinent. In this session, we will have a talk on the topic Vyuha, the lost art, military formation of ancient India. This session will be delivered by Colonel Dr. Vijaykant Chenji, and Indus International Research Foundation is a platform, is a think tank which is operating in India and has a base in USA also. We have been conducting various seminars, conferences on geopolitics, history, culture, and contemporary issues. So, before inviting our speaker, I will introduce him about Colonel Vijaykant Chenji, sir. Colonel Vijaykant Chenji is an alumnus of National Defense Academy, Khadakwasla. He participated in Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971. He has served in Ladakh, Sikkim Heights, Rajasthan Desert, and counter-insurgency operations in the Northeast. He was awarded the Chief of Army Staff Commendation Medal. He holds a doctorate degree from prestigious Sanskrit University and also holds master's degree in Ancient India and Advait Vedanta. He has authored 5 books and published various research papers in national and international journals. He has visited more than 3 dozen countries. He was our former National Research Foundation, and currently he is doing research on scientific inventions in ancient India. Welcome you, sir, and we invite you for your talk. Now the presentation will be done on our side. You can start the talk.
I hope I am visible and audible.
Right, sir.
Namaskar.
Yes,
good evening to you all. First of all, I would like to congratulate Indus International Research Foundation for this initiative. I think it's a great initiative, and ultimately what will come out at the end of this series for arranging the series of lectures on famous Indian battles. The posterity will have a lot to be grateful to you all. Having said that, I also would like to thank Group Captain Rajshekhar Mehta, who is the longest General Secretary. He has been doing a great job while all of us get tired and keep moving. His sustained effort, and also Dr. Piyush Bhagwia. I am grateful to both of them for inviting me to give this talk. Now, it is not a structured PowerPoint presentation. It is some random thoughts, because this book was published a couple of months back. A little brief background to this book. Actually, when I was doing my MPhil, I wrote it was my dissertation, and then it was in Sanskrit. So I shared with a lot of my friends, my army colleagues, but they could not make out much of it because it was all in Sanskrit. So they requested me to make it in English. So I translated. Then thought occurred to me. I said, why not write the book? Now that involved a lot of, again, research. I had to go back, and then, so it was much bigger than my dissertation paper. But at the end, I think I am satisfied, and I've shared this book with a lot of people, and now it's there on Amazon. So all the history departments, I can even sort of donate it, is no problem. If you can afford, you must get this book there, because it's a research book. It's not like a novel or just copied from it. It's a research from the original text. Now, coming back to the topic, as you all seen, the topic is Vyuha, the lost art, military formation in ancient India. Those with military background will be able to correlate and easily identify with the contents of the book. In parts, some of my the talk may be a little technical, especially those who are not familiar with the military jargon. but I'll try and make it as informal as possible. I'll try and keep the, the duration of my talks confined to about 40 minutes. And then I'll request whosoever is keeping a track just to alert me. And thereafter, I'll take another 5 minutes or so. And we'll devote about 10 minutes for questions in case somebody has any. Now, I begin with the history of warfare. Just like I said, I don't have any, presentation material or even a text script. So I'm just talking a little like Pulse. Kindly bear with me. I want to make it as informal as possible. So the history of warfare begins, and the earliest evidence of documented history is in Rig Veda. Most historians would be knowing that. And that is a story of 10 kings. It is called Dasharagya Yuddha. Dasha in Sanskrit is 10, Ragya is kings, Ragyah, Ragya. It is Ragya is kings, and Yuddha, of course, is war. And there was one king by name Sudas, and then he was located somewhere around present-day Punjab, across Bias River, and then he moved with his army to the south towards present-day Haryana, and there he came across the 10 tribes. These were the 10 kings, and ultimately he conquered the area, and he crossed River Ravi. So the scholars generally feel that it was a war for control of the river. Now, it is there in Rig Veda in Mandala 7. The Rig Veda has got 10 mandalas, as some of you would know. And it is in Mandala 7 and given in favor. Now, this is the earliest documented evidence of any warfare anywhere in the world. So it dates back to, it is undated, although so many people have put, few centuries here and there, but I don't believe any of them having seen, because Ramayana itself is old. These days, the dating system is very, very advanced with carbon dating and so much of evidence. So I'll leave it to scholars on that account. Now, at that time, wars were fought for 4 different reasons, which is very much prevalent even today, except for one, which I'll now elaborate. Wars were fought for people, for land, and water. You all might be knowing a couple of years back, about 2 decades 20 or 25 years back, there was a lot of talk on, all future wars are going to be on water. But it has always been there. Like the first battle itself, what we have seen is was a battle for control of River Ravi, that area. So this was a very fertile area. Now, subsequently also we have seen, even in the neighborhood, there's fight for water. There's a water war going on between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu for a long. Then there is 10 years war, which happened between Iraq and Iran. And almost anywhere you come across, water has always been a survival, a product for survival. So it's natural. And the last one is the cattle. But during those years, there was this battle used to be for cattle. Some of you must be wondering what is the relevance of cattle in war. Today we don't hear of it. But if you see in the Indian tradition, cattle was always gifted, and it was a sign of, it is a symbol of status. If you see in Kathopanishad, those of you who are familiar with this, Nachiketa's father, he is after a ritual yagya, sacrificed fire. Cows used to be given away to the priests, and then for all these big kings, they would give away horses, caparisoned elephants, decorated elephants, and all these things as a gift, as a dowry to the daughter. In Bhagavatam, in book 10, not chapter, book 10, canto 2, there is a reference of Devaki, who was a biological mother to Lord Krishna. And in that, there is a reference when she was married, her father, Devaka, was a very powerful king. and he donated her 400 fully decorated elephants and about 1,800 absolutely, state of art at that time chariots, then 10,000 horses and 200 maids fully with gold and all. It was sent. So cattle was so much so, the kings even carried out small campaigns to steal cattle. It is there in Prasanga in Mahabharata during a Virat Parva. Karna and Duryodhana come to steal cattle. I'm sure some of you were familiar with Mahabharata, must be knowing that. So cattle was very important. Today we don't have, because cattle have been replaced by mechanical things. During those days, horses, elephants were used as in the warfare as a weapon. But today we have tanks, armored personal carriers, and aircrafts and all. So cattle have lost their relevance. Other than that, it's all. The ancient Indians were the primary aim of the reasons why wars were fought in the ancient times were to uphold dharma. Now, wherever there was adharma, the wars took place. I mean, that was the foundation for having the war. In Gita, there is a sloka, you all must be familiar with it, I think chapter 4. Yada yada dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata adhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam srujamyaham. Whenever there is a decline in moral standards, automatically there is some divine force which comes. Although in Gita, Krishna says, I come down. But, for general public, there is a divine force which comes up and which sets the thing in order. So it was always dharma. There is a very nice, interesting the talk. In the prasanga, or the what you call episode in Mahabharata. Now, after the peace talks failed between Kauravas and the Pandavas to avert a war. A lot of peace talks. Sanjaya came from Pandava side to the Kaurava side, and Krishna went from Pandava side to the Kaurava side. Sanjaya, the other way around. Sanjaya came from Kauravas to the Pandavas with a message to Yudhishthir, and Krishna went there as an emissary. And it's also well documented. Krishna moved from somewhere near present-day Jaipur to he came via Ajmer and this thing, and that's the place where there's a place Upaplavya. Upaplavya was a staging area for the armies. Even today, of course, these days we don't have, but in the Second World War, when the large amount of armies moved, they didn't move just from their barracks to the war front. They moved to the staging area. So Upaplavya was a staging area for the Mahabharata war. It is somewhere between Jaipur and Ajmer, and a very, very large area, because 21 Akshauhinis had to be accommodated. Size of Akshauhini, and we'll come to that later. So at that time, when the talks failed, the formation started moving to the Upaplavya, both Kauravas and Pandavas. And Duryodhana, he went around like the heads of states, they go to other states to ask for help and all. He went around meeting people, other kings, and also he sought the blessings of his elders. At that time, even today, blessings are considered very important in our context, Ashirwad. So he went to seek the blessings of Dhritarashtra, who blessed him, Vijayi Bhava. Then he went to Bhishma, he went to Drona. And when he came to Gandhari, his mother, she didn't say Vijayi Bhava. She just said, Yatho Dharma Tato Jaya. She was a very, very pious lady, morally very high. And she said she had 100 of her sons fighting, but she said wherever there is righteousness, there will be victory. And this was repeated a couple of times. So if you see in Mahabharata, this Yatho Dharma tato jayaha. It is there. It also forms the first, the punchline of my book. The, the very now, what was the concept of warfare during those days? Warfare during those days, uh, unlike today, was not one country against other in built-up areas and all that. Warfare was always in a in an area outside towns and cities, a common area. If some attack, one nation attack, one Rajya or state attacked another one, it was outside the town, so that there's no collateral damage. So they were very, very concerned at that time. Subsequently, these turned into forts. And so the cantonment of the military moved to the fort area, which was self-contained. And one of the best self-contained forts I have come across is, I must thank my friend Dr. Piyush for taking me to that Chittorgarh in Rajasthan, Udaipur, somewhere close to his place where he lives. And some of you must have seen. It's such a beautiful fort. I saw it from the military point of view. It is about 14 kilometers stretch and 2 kilometers wide. The entire town is based in that. So it's a classic. You don't have very many forts like that in India. And so the forts, the village, the wars were fought outside the villages. And the other, now, what was the yardstick to see who won the war, who lost the war? Yardstick was capture of the king. Any king who was captured, that army is deemed to have been defeated. So the wars were fought outside the town, and the aim used to be to capture the king. That used to be the first aim. The second aim used to be to capture the treasury. That's why good old days, whenever there was a war, in Mahabharata you'll come across often. Whenever there's a war, good old days, the treasury would move with the king, and the king would be in the core of the formation, in the center of the formation, and where he would be very well protected by elephants, by horses, and by infantry, and by specially trained commandos and all that. Because if that was lost, the automatically everything in the city and the town became theirs. That was the way the wars were fought during this. Unlike today, today it's only borders, and like earlier Dr. Poonam Rana was mentioning, those were the days when wars were fought by individuals. You know, it was more individual bravery, whether it was Abhimanyu or whether it was Karna or whether it was Arjuna. It was, and this lasted in our Indian context for a very long time. If you see the death of Tipu in 1799 in Mysore, he died fighting a battle. I mean, it is as recent as that. Then you have examples of Shivaji. You know, Shivaji killing Afzal Khan. Shivaji, his retreat action. Recently, I had been to the Panhala and that, there's another small little place, and finally Vishalgarh. So when and most of the time he was fighting, he was on the horses. It's only now that the planners, they are there at headquarters. About recently, I wrote another book, Battle of Dien Bien Phu, and in which the Indochina, the commander was sitting in Saigon, which is now Ho Chi Minh City, and the fighting was going on about 1,500 kilometers. Battles were controlled from there. So today is a totally different way to look at it. Then now I come to straight away to Vyuha. Could they have the first slide, please? Now, before we come to the Vyuha, this is the code of the letters are very small. You will not be able to read. I'll just read out from the book. Those of you can see that it's fine. There was a code of conduct for war. Just like we have these days, prior to elections, the Election Commission issues the code of conduct. what you should do, do's and don'ts. So at that time, this was the earliest code of conduct uh, was in history. And there were a total of 8 of them. It was drafted between Bhishma from the Pandava side and Krishna and Yudhishthir from the Pandava side. The other was the Kaurava side. The first code was fighting must begin and end uh, at dawn and dusk. So before that, there's no fighting, and after dark, last light, there's no fighting. The second was multiple warriors cannot attack a single warrior. Third was two warriors can duel if they have same weapons and on the same mount. Like a person sitting on a elephant, he cannot fight somebody who's sitting on a horse because he has an advantage. Now, if you see even in our today, all our games, you look at boxing, there are so many weights. There's a lightweight, featherweight, bantamweight, light heavyweight, super heavyweight, and all. One cannot punch into the other one. I mean, at least the person in a higher weight category cannot punch into the lower weight. So these were also, it's almost like a game. They, very ethical. Then a warrior who surrenders become a prisoner of war. He is entitled to the rights of a prisoner. Today, in the Geneva Conventions, what we have is after so many thousands of years, imagine the vision these people had at that time. Once a person is taken a prisoner, he has the rights of a prisoner. He cannot be killed. He cannot be tortured. These were there. Warriors cannot kill or injure unarmed enemy warriors. It's again, the moment a person has surrendered, you cannot sort of harm him. Warriors cannot kill or injure unconscious warriors. Sometimes due to dehydration or due to exhaustion, people would collapse. And if he's unconscious, you cannot kill him. Now, these were some of the things. Warriors cannot kill or injure people or animals who are non-combatants in the war. Even during those days, they were non-combatants. And what the Britishers called camp followers. We had in the Indian Army, First World War, Second World War, there were the contractors who went, banias, what we call in the unit canteens. They were all non-combatants. At that time, barbers, blacksmith, carpenter, painter, we had them. They're all called NCs, non-combatants enrolled. But later on in 72, they all became combatants. Today, everybody is a combatant. So they civilly accept the civil contract. They're called the camp followers. So they cannot be attacked. And warriors cannot kill or injure warriors who have their backs turned. In other words, in Mahabharata, in the 14 days, there are quite a few very big, warriors who ran away. The moment they turned their back, they could not be shot or killed. Now, these were the code which were followed, but not very strictly. I'll come to the end if you have time. There were few violations from both sides. Both the Pandavas did it. Abhimanyu was killed. He was surrounded by 7 men. He didn't have a weapon. His chariot had been destroyed. Yet they surrounded and killed him. That was very highly unethical and immoral. The same thing, Karna was killed in the same way. Dronacharya had disarmed, and by deceit, Dr. Poonam Rana was saying these days we have all sort of, no, when you call it Dharma Yuddha, you don't do this, but then there is a justification for that. We'll not go into that. If you have time, we can discuss this. Now, we come to the Vyuha. Could we have the next slide, please? Yeah. Now, this table which you see on the left-hand side, as I look at it, the Pandavas, and on the right-hand side is the Kauravas. Now, these were the the Akshauhinis. Now, Akshauhini is the largest army formation which we have. We'll come back to this slide after we have discussed the structure of the armies. Because this becomes very relevant. We could move on to the next slide. Yeah. Now, this slide shows the structure of the army as it was. On the left-hand side, we have how the army was organized in the. I think I'm running behind time. I'll have to the Russian. Okay, on the left-hand side, we have the armies which was organized during the Kurukshetra war, and on the right-hand side, we have the organization. Now, if you compare both of them, later on you can see in the slide, there is a lot of similarity even today. Even after 5,000 years of war, this structure has not changed. Which goes to say that when these organizations were made, a lot of thought was given and it was very scientifically done. Now, uh, the first is on the left-hand side. I'll devote a little time because everything is based on this one. We can skip the other things. Now, Padati. Padati is a section of the 10, which is today called a section in the army, in the Indian army or in most other armies also. The smallest unit, fighting unit, is called a section, which has about 10 men. And during those days, it used to be called the Padati. Then it was Sena Mukha. So three Padatis made one Sena Mukha. Three Padatis made one platoon, which is what is today also. One section, three sections make a platoon. And three uh, Sena Mukhas or three platoons made one company, which is called Gulma. So we have Padati, we have Sena Mukha, we have Gulma. So it is a section, a platoon, and three. There is a three-tier system. But suddenly it changes here. Four companies make a battalion. And a battalion is called a Gana. So why this everywhere? You'll further it goes on 3, 3, 3, except four companies make a battalion. There is a reserve component element. There's a reason why it is done. Will not go into it. It's a little technical. Then after that is a Vahini. You must have heard of some Mahila Vahini or this Vahini and all. It's a brigade. So Vahini is a brigade. So three Ganas or three battalions made a Vahini or a brigade. And three Vahinis made a Pruthana, a division. And three Pruthanas made a corps, which is a Chamu, which was called a Chamu. And three Chamus made an army, which is now what is this thing. There it was called Akshauhini. So you can imagine how huge Akshauhini must have been. I'll give you the figures later. We could go on to the next slide, please. Now, this is Vyuhas employed in Kurukshetra. Now, this is a table. I won't go into that. I'll just run through the names. Some of the, yeah, some of the name was, Garda Vyuha, Krauncha Vyuha, Chakra Vyuha, Makara Vyuha, Mandala Vyuha, and so on. There were almost about 15, 16 Vyuhas were made. There are different types of Vyuhas. For a long time, I used to think there's only one Vyuha, that is Chakra Vyuha. We only knew that. But during my research, I found that there are more than 32 Vyuhas. And all these Vyuhas were highly scientifically done. These Vyuhas resembled birds, they resembled reptiles, they resembled animals. It was easy for the troops to remember. And that's exactly why these names were given, so that whenever troops were told, because at a very short notice, these formations had to take place, and they had the sound system through bugles. It is still used in our army. It's all given in this book. So these are the names. And what I have done is each of the name which is given, on which day, in which chapter it is given, in the brackets is given. See, for instance, in one of the things, yeah, Drona Parva. Sorry. Yeah. Now, if you pay a little attention to this, read in your own time, you can get the recording. You can study each one of them. For researchers, it's very helpful because it took me a lot of time to sort of get into the details of each one of them. There are Mahabharata has got 18 parvas. Dr. Suchi Gupta, I think in her first lecture, she had covered that. So you should, if you know each one of the parvas in which it is there, and the parva which starts from Udyoga Parva right up to Shalya Parva, which is about 5-6 chapters, it's all warfare. So 33% of Mahabharata is all about warfare. And to go into each one of the things, when this was which was done, it has taken a lot of. So this table gives all that. So we could go to the next one, please. Next slide. Yeah. Now this again is the same one. This gives the day-wise utilization of Vyuha. Now Vyuha, what exactly is a Vyuha? Before we go further, I'll explain. Vyuha is basically an army formation. Army, it doesn't move like a crowd. 10,000 people just go. They're all divided into various departments. They're all divided into various weapons. There is a command and control system. There's a communication system. Who goes when? Drills are there. Training is there. Which weapon is to be used. So it's a very, very scientific way of organizing the whole thing. And it's all controlled. For instance, if there's a fighting going on, a detachment, it can be detached and yet the others can go on. That is what gives the flexibility in the warfare. And so here, each day, both sides fielded their Vyuhas formation. And here again, like Dr. Poonam was saying, if it was Sarpa Vyuha which was used, as a counter, a Garuda Vyuha was done. It is basically for troops to understand, because the moment you relate it with a bird, Krauncha Vyuha is a heron. And, there are different types of birds, and people would know what would be the shape, whose position is where, what is the core area, where is the king. Like I said, king is located in the center, and then, there is a treasury there. Now there are, which I'll come to the next point. It is, the concept of the Vyuha was very clear. The strategy was to overpower and dominate the other one. Vyuha was not a static formation. Vyuha was a highly dynamic formation. It could change, just like a water flows according to the area. It is low-lying areas. If it comes in the mountain, it just avoids, skirts the thing and goes. So something like that. Now there are some principles which were employed while designing a Vyuha. What were these principles? Now these principles were the same as the principles of war. The concentration of force. There had to be an aim. Then there is a balanced force. There is a flexibility. There is administration. So there are about 8-9 principles of war, which was used in all these. Then there are, what are the types of Vyuhas? The types of Vyuhas, if you could go on to the, no, just a minute, hold on. Now these are, while this slide is on, okay, we will go on to this. Yeah, this slide is on. Now these are some of the key players in the Mahabharata war. These are, I have selected them, it is 15, 20, there are very many, but about 10, 15 are there, 2-3 slides. Now these heroes, or they are in 3 categories. There's a Rathi category, there's a Maharathi category, and Adhirathi category, and there is a Maharathi category. A Maharathi cannot be fighting a Rathi, or Adhirathi cannot be fighting a Maharathi. So each one they are categorized. It is just like saying a captain will fight a captain, a colonel will fight a colonel, something like that, something on those. They are so structured and they are so strict about that. So you had this Nakula, Sahadeva, Krishna, Bhima, Arjuna, Yudhishthira. These are all Pandava side, and on the other side you had Bhishma, Drona, Kripacharya, then your Dushasana, Duryodhana, and there are a lot of others, but each one had a category which a layman would not know unless you have studied. We'll go on to the next one. Yeah, now these are some of the we'll run through. Now, this has been very artistically done, but on the ground, they had a distances who would be there and all, because these are the aerial, the kind of a view of how it would be. Now, underneath that is uh, we are given on which day and who are the commander. For each one of them, there used to be a commander designated. One day prior to the Mahabharata war, these people would sit down and that night, because they had a small window time. The war finished at the end of the day as soon as the sunset took place, and immediately they all went into their camps. And both sides mingled. There was no enemy camp and this camp. So they're all cousins and relatives. Some died across. And just half an hour before the morning, they were supposed to again get into the battle positions. They went back to there. So, in spite of that, they had their own espionage systems, but still, enemy could walk into anybody, because after that, there was no activity of any violence which would take place. So this is just one of the. I'm sorry, my eyesight is not very good. I can't read the thing. Somebody can read it. It's okay, but otherwise, you can just run through these slides. These are various the Vyuhas. If you have a little interest in the army thing, military, and then you can correlate their tactics, it's very interesting. I found them very interesting. And most of the thing, who was where, there's a defense system. This is supposed to be mandala. Mandala is a kind of which is around, and wherever the opposing army was, very large deployment was there. So this kind of a thing used to be used. There is a thing called Suchi also. In this is the Chandra. It is enveloping. Today, some of our armored formations have similar kind of a design and structure. Yeah. Now, some of the principles of Vyuha were aim. It has to be a balanced force. Now, one Vyuha, just for your information, was one Akshauhini, where the strength would be about 218,000 units. Units means, when I say unit, is not that what the unit we have in the Indian Army is about. Unit means an individual. For instance, a section was a composite body. A section would consist of 5 soldiers, 1 elephant, 5 horses, and so it had this. So you could multiply it by 3 and go on, and ultimately you could come to about 218,000 something. I'll just read out the figures. Could we have the next slide? There's one slide which gives the strength of the entire. Otherwise, I can read it out. For instance, one Akshawani had 21,870 chariots, 21,870 elephants, 1 lakh, 1 lakh 930 infantry soldiers and 65,690 horses. So you can imagine such a large force being put in one area. Uh, there are some people, some mischief. They said, "Oh, Kurukshetra was a very small war. It was just equivalent to what a, football field or something like that." Actually, Kurukshetra was spread right from Vipaplavya, which is there somewhere in Jaipur, right up to the east, much to almost about halfway of the present day UP. So, because we had 18 Akshauhinis, out of 18 Akshauhinis, 11 were with Kauravas and 8 were with Pandavas. And each one of them had about 2 lakhs plus forces. And nobody is going to stand shoulder to shoulder. They're all spread out. One elephant would itself occupy about 50 meters. And then there would be another elephant. And so on. The horses, the chariots. So it was a very, very large area. And then there are allies. Like we have political parties today, so and so allies with so and so. And then there is the numbers which count. So at that time also the Pandavas had their own allies and the Kauravas also their own allies. And here their ideologies mattered because you see the Pandavas always had, those who are dharma centric, dharma driven governance. The Pandavas believed in that. And for Kauravas, it didn't matter. But some people out of compulsions, they had to be. It happens even today in our political party. Now, what are the factors? The last major point, which I'll come to after this, we'll just wind up. There will be some small little interesting things we can discuss if there is time. Now, factors affecting the Kurukshetra, the Vyuha, employment of Vyuha. First is, what is your aim? Like on the 13th day after Abhimanyu's death, I mean after 12th, after Bhishma died on the 10th day, Drona became the chief. And it was decided, Duryodhana said, I want, your Yudhishthir to be captured. He had a strategy why he had to be captured. Now, the moment he said that, they had to make a very, very strong Vyuha, very powerful Vyuha. And Dronacharya was the only one who knew that. And he also knew the weakness of Arjuna. He said, Arjuna can breach this Vyuha. So send him away. So they made some program in such a way that Krishna and Arjuna were weaned away from the battle. And this was designed, it was supposed to be one of the most complex and difficult Vyuhas, Chakra Vyuha, also called Padma Vyuha. So the aim had to be very clear. Aim was to capture Yudhishthir as far as Kauravas are concerned. Then the enemy, who all were in the enemy? Duryodhana, with Arjuna and Krishna being there was no way this could, because Arjuna could breach it. So he was sent away. Then the resources. You must have enough resources. Unless you have adequate resources, no matter how good your intentions are, what you want to do, that is there in every walk of life, right? So if you want to make a house, very lavish house, you must have the resources. You must have the fund, the right material, the right people, and so on. Then the terrain. Although it was in the plains of the Ganga, Indo-Gangetic plains, this was fought, still there were some small areas where there were hills, where there was nalas. So one had to keep in account the terrain which is there. And then there's a time. There's a time limit beyond which you cannot prolong your aim. And the last is the warriors. Unless you have the right warriors with you, and unless you make sure the your rivals are eliminated, you cannot. So these were some of the things. Composition and strength I already covered. These are all available in the book, and also it will be there in the net if you can go through. The structure of armies of Pandavas were strikingly similar to the present-day Indian army. And Indian army is nothing but a legacy of the British army. So even the British, the Europeans had copied this three-tier system. Even the Russian army, if you see. But I'm sure somebody, because they did more research than we have been doing. And now with this we come to the end of the Vyuha. I will deliberately not touched into too many technical things, otherwise it can get very boring. The Vyuhas generally is divided into four compartments. One is a Bhoga Vyuha. Under Bhoga Vyuha, we have four. Then there's a Mandala Vyuha. Mandala Vyuha is all circular type Vyuha. There are two. Then Asamhita Vyuha. Asamhita Vyuha. There are five of them. And then there is a Danda Vyuha. That is 20 of them. Now, Danda Vyuha is a linear formation. And in linear formations, there could be a lot of modifications. Now, with this, we come to the end of Vyuhas. Now, I'll give you a few snippets, interesting snippets of the war. There's plenty of interesting, serious things, but there used to be one famous warrior by name Bhagadatta. I don't know how many of you have heard of him. He was one of the oldest, very revered, and he was the king of present-day Assam area. It used to be called Prakjosh. He was the king of Prakjosh. Now he was very old, but he was very clever, very agile, and a great warrior. He was so old that his body was full of wrinkles and his eyelids were heavy and it had covered his eyes. He could not see. So what he would do is he would get hold of his eye, the upper eyelids, pull it up, and with a ribbon he would tie it. So it was very difficult to sort of neutralize him. And he had a very powerful elephant. It was one of the best fighter elephants, and he would always fight from that. And even Bhima could not do anything. So Krishna tells the only way you can eliminate him is by cutting off his ribbon. So his ribbon was destroyed by one arrow, and his eyelids still, he got blinded and he was killed. That's a way, one interesting. The second thing is Shalya. I don't know how many people have you have heard Shalya. Shalya chapter is the last of the battle chapters. Now Shalya was the last chief because after Bhishma died, Drona became the army chief. After Drona, Karna was made the chief. Then it was Shalya who was made the chief. And Shalya was a great warrior himself, and he was the king of Madra. His sister was Madri, who was married to Pandu, the king Pandu. She was his second wife. And then she had two children, Nakula and Sahadeva. So Shalya was Mamaji of her Nakula and Sahadeva. So both these, he was very fond of his nephews, and he would often tell them, why don't you break away and come to me and become kings in my the Madra kingdom? It's such a huge kingdom. He had a very big army. And he would always say, but Nakula and Sahadeva, much as they respected their uncle, they said, our loyalty is to our brother. Don't try and sort of entice us into getting it. But he genuinely believed that you will never get your turn because both of you are fourth and fifth in the line to become kings. In your lifetime, you will never become. But they never heard. Anyway, when the war started, he espoused his loyalty to the Pandavas. He said, I'll fight for the Pandavas. And he started moving one Akshauhini. He brought one huge army, is Akshauhini. Now, Duryodhana, he got a sniff of it. He knew that this person is coming. He had a weakness for drinks. He was fond of good food and drinks. So Duryodhana kind of ambushed him without telling that, he is, this thing belonged to him. And then, he sent some emissaries and he was looked after. And Shalya was very happy. He said, look, the Yudhishthira has done so much for me. And at the end, he said, what great arrangement. It was all luxury tents, huge ones and very lavish. food, lavish hospitality. Then he said, whosoever has arranged for this, I will fight for him. Then Duryodhana at that time came and said, it is I who have done this. But being a Kshatriya, he would not go back in his word. He said, okay, I'll fight for you. And he fought for them. And ultimately, he was killed by one of his own kin. So this is a very interesting sort of anecdote. He knew that he had been tricked by Duryodhana, but all these things happen in a war. So with this, I uh, then there is there any time, Piyush, Dr. Piyush?
Yes, sir. You can continue for 5 more minutes on the topic. Then I will request you to move to your new book, The Battle of Din Bin Few. A few
Acha,
minutes of
okay,
that.
okay, okay. I'll just take 2 more minutes. We are talking about ethics. Now, this is a Dharma Yuddha. It is about 5,000 years. There's so much of morality and righteousness and all. But we often criticize the present day. They're full of deceit and all. But I would also like to tell you, having studied the present, the thing, when it comes to ethics and morality, it's not too bad. I'll tell you, in the First World War, we lost about 2 million people. Second World War also, we lost so many million people. And there were so many soldiers in all these wars who were killed. There was no sort of rules for their code for their safety. So in 1949, there is a Geneva Conventions, and in Geneva Convention, they brought out these rules saying that you cannot uh, harm, those soldiers who have been who are sick or wounded, or those sailors who are sick and wounded on the ships, or ships which have been wrecked, and also those who have been captured, the prisoners. That is the third Geneva Convention. All the prisoners, you cannot coerce them to part with the information. They're only entitled to give their your personal number and name, nothing beyond it, not in the regiment. And but how do you enforce this? Again, Dr. Poonam was talking about chemical warfare and all. Now it's all banned under this thing: chemical warfare, biological warfare, nuclear warfare. Americans did that, but after that, there has been, because there's a very strict watch. I want to share with you a personal experience. In 1971 war, we captured 93,500 Pakistani prisoners, and we brought them from East, or East Bengal, then East Pakistan, to UP and MP and all this, and we put them in various prisoners. I was one of the in charge of one of the prisoners camps, and we had about 3,500 prisoners. And I used to think, who bothers, how you look after them? We had your some international agency who were there, were constantly monitoring, who were talking to them. The press was there. So we had to abide by all those things. So all over the world, recently it has happened in Hamas, between Israel and Hamas. So there is some Red Cross is there. There are so many agencies which keep it very, very close, the human rights organizations and all. So the state is responsible. So that is as far the aspect is concerned. So we have saved thousands and thousands of soldiers from being tortured, from being killed without arms. There. So even the present day, what we have, the civilized society, we do take care of that. So it is not as a dharma as some people talk. With this, I come to the end of it. If there's uh, any questions, in case there are any, we're happy to answer.
I will request that the questions can be taken after your a brief talk on the Battle of Din Bin Few, the book which you have recently launched.
Okay, okay. Just give me a second. I'll. Uh, Am I visible?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Hello?
sir. Yes, sir. Please, sir.
Am I visible?
Yes, sir.
No, because I don't see myself on the screen. It's okay, as long as you people can see it. But now this is the book which was just released about 10 days back in one of the formations in Ahmedabad. There was Lieutenant General Mistry who released the book. Who was the former commandant of National Defense Academy, and few brigadiers were there. And now this big book is again research. I visited Vietnam twice to study the battle area. This name Dien Bien Phu is the location where this battle took place between the French and the uh, Viet Cong. Viet Cong at that time, they were still emerging as there was a small little first communist party under Ho Chi Minh. And he had a general by name General Giap, General Giap. And nobody knew him. He didn't go to any military school as such. So I'll just read out the France had colonized Vietnam in 1859 and ruled the country for almost a century. Soon after World War II, the Communist Revolutionary Party of Vietnam, with its newly formed army, the Viet Minh, staged a guerrilla warfare to free the nation from its colonial yoke. In the spring of 1953, the French Expeditionary Force started a military campaign to crush the revolutionary by undertaking a bold plan to establish a strong fortress in a remote valley with an old airstrip. Now that is the place where it was called Dien Bien Phu. The book explored the causes of the war, reasons for defeat of the French army. 7 decades after the iconic war, Dien Bien Phu still haunts the Western world and is enigma to all those interested in wars and warfare. The author visited the battle area and carried out a detailed study. A chapter on artillery has been included by comparing it with its role in Kargil. So this book vividly captures General Giap's brilliant maneuvers that turned tables on the French army and stunned the world. So this is very briefly introduction to the book, and it's one of my you know well-researched books. That's all I can say. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. I hope you could understand some of the things what I tried to put across. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir, for such a scholarly work. And you have written a book on the topic itself. So congratulations for that. And definitely we'll be going through the book and write a book review in some journals. So the other people may also know about the book and the ancient Indian formations, the ancient knowledge we had. So the session is now open for question and answer. Anyone can ask the question.
I have, and I think Javeri sir also has one question. I have one question, Piyush sir.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, it's not a question actually. It's about in the code of conduct of war. Kautal Sahab said code of conduct of war was 8, and then in concept of Vyuha, principles of war he talked about. Is it the same principles of war and code of conduct of war?
No. These are totally two different things. The conduct of war is how one should conduct, like it is like Dharma Yuddha. It is just like when you are having elections. Now, as for the principles of war is concerned, while planning a Vyuha, one must observe certain principles for it to be, effective.
Thank you. Yeah, and now I understood.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question?
Yes, sir. I have a question to Colonel Chenji. You talk about the characters in Mahabharata is very well, but you see the one character you don't talk about is Dronacharya, and even worse is his son Ashwatthama. The war ended when he broke all the so-called laws of war and committed war crimes.
Yes.
And what does the Guru teach his own son? What use of calling us a guru? And who could stop him? What use of talking of Bhagavad Gita and karma and dharma yudh when finally the guru's son himself did all this? What is right and wrong in this world?
No, what you say, it did happen, but it is in our tradition, once a son is more than 16 years, you don't sort of own his karma. One should, just because I am a good guy, it doesn't mean that my son will have to. Yeah, you do give samskaras, you do hand over certain karmas. Now, as far as he is concerned, he had his own. See, we often say that everything is fair in love and war. The way Abhimanyu was butchered, that 7 people, Karna, Drona, then Dushasana, Duryodhana, Jayadratha, all these people, and a 60-year-old boy without it. So it did happen, and because of that, the curse, he did suffer. His aim was to completely eliminate the Pandava dynasty. Draupadi had 5 children. Okay. After the Pandavas, there won't be anybody. The only one was Abhimanyu's wife Uttara. She was in the family way. So he even fired Brahmastra on her, which Krishna prevented and saved. So subsequently he became Parikshit. So in the war, this kind of a thing is there. Nobody holds a candle to that kind of an activity because these people were sleeping. Draupadi's 5 children, they were all sleeping, and it was a time. Leave alone during day, at night, even during day, if they were sleeping, you shouldn't have trust them.
No, fine, but if effectively no use of talking about karma and nishkama karma.
All the more reason you should talk, because otherwise everybody will follow. If there's no, if you don't follow any sort of texts or any scriptures, after all, who decides what is good and what is bad? You tell me. We always say there's nothing. Who decides whether this is good or not? It's only a scripture, shastras decide. And shastras are given there in the book. So just because one has done, you cannot, sort of dismiss the idea of this great scripture. They're all. So ultimately, for me, if I have to do this right or wrong, if I'm in a dilemma, I decide what does my scripture say, shastras say. What the shastras say, I follow. That is the thing. Just like in a secular world, we follow the constitution. Who's right? Whether this is, we follow the constitution. So for a religious person, a shastra is a constitution. Yeah.
Any other question? Alkesh sir, you raised hand from USA.
Yeah,
Alkesh,
sure. I don't have any question. The only thing is, he was talking about the French and Vietnam. The same thing, Vietnam also defeated United States. So any research work on going on that? Since I live in United States, I'm a bit more interested. I've seen some.
Yeah, I'll tell you, you asked a very interesting question. The French ruled Vietnam for 100 years. And the French lost the Second World War. Germans ran over them completely. And Germany had so much of territory, they couldn't capture the whole of France. So they left a part of France, which is called the Vichy France. And France was ruling there, from there. So they had lost their own country, but they had a small little place, and they were ruling all over Africa. And in India also, they had in the south, in Pondicherry somewhere. And then these people were also fighting the Indochina. See, it is actually Indochina. It is Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Now, with great difficulty, they were completely defeated. French were absolutely shattered. If you read the book, you'll get to know. That was the time the cowboy, the American cowboy, they landed up there. We should not have done. That's where they got sucked into that. And subsequently, next 20 years, like they fought in Afghanistan and withdrew, a small country, and they used to sort of, denigrate them oh, इनको क्या आता है, that kind of attitude. And they defeated this thing. United States lost 50 to 60,000 men. It's a separate battle because they stepped in. They said, you have insulted a Western power. We'll show you what it is. We'll bomb you into Stone Age. This is what one of your senators said that. No? It became very
I just want, I'm an Indian, but I just wanted, it was my interest, like it. Same thing.
No, no.
And the second thing, if we observe, Afghanistan also, being a country of small country, is making their nose bleed. US and,
Very
and
show your
Russia.
face, please.
No, I'll tell you, this is what
Oh,
I say.
Sorry.
When you fight, it is if it is not Dharma Yuddha, this is what will happen. Any war
that's
which
what
is
I-
fought, if you have to
Most of the
uphold
small
Dharma,
countries have made them nosebleed, though they have big
Absolutely.
army.
because if you don't have, if you are morally not correct, I mean, you can never win a war. I mean, that's my view. People will
That
have
was
their
only
own-
the interest. Like I like see books and war books, so sometimes I read. So that's why I ask you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
Thank
the-
you, thank you.
between Russia and Ukraine, who is Dharma and who is Adharma now in the current war?
Between Russia and
Ukraine, sir, the current war, Russia and Ukraine.
yeah.
Who is the
If
Dharma and
I
who is the Adharma?
say nobody's there
No,
on right side, because both are just fighting for the oil and their space,
no, it's
and
not
they are
just
being
also.
made
No,
something like to play around. Like Zelensky was made around by US, is pushed around by US and Europeans to fight with Russia, putting so many lives in danger. That's what I feel.
See what's happening there. These are all geopolitical this thing, and all that I can say is between the two of them, there is a Western bloc, there is a Eastern bloc. So it depends on these are ideological wars, and they also become economical wars. And then that all that I can say is the stand taken by India, I think, is absolutely wrong. We don't want any kind of wars. And see, India won the Bangladesh war. I was there in that war, and we captured the entire Bangladesh was with us. We could have taken so many, sorted out so many those chicken's neck, those area widened and all. Bangladesh didn't exist at that time. Pakistan had left. We could have done what we wanted it. Yet, partly foolish also, we left the whole the country. Same thing happened in Sri Lanka. If you see, Rama won complete Sri Lanka, but he handed it over. So if you don't have any ambitious thing, you'll always win the war. That's my way of looking. Dharma and adharma is very much, it's not a fashion. It is always there for good. That's my understanding.
Any other
But
question?
it is a good question. So what you asked, Rishi, we'll talk about it. You know, yesterday what happened? Yesterday, it may be a little digressing in the thing.
I have a question.
Pavitra Yadav, madam, do you have a question? You raised hand. Pavitra-
Sorry, sir. I am not-
Yes, yes, sir.
I am Pavitra Narayan Yadav from Nepal
Yes.
Yeah, nice, nice, nice.
Boliye.
and a student of Professor Dr. Poonam Rana.
Okay.
Even I first time I also called him Pavitra girl. I thought he was a girl.
Okay.
Thanks for Dr. Cornel Chenji.
Yes.
You have giving nice presentation about Mahabharata war. And my question is that what is the message of Mahabharata war for recent country?
For which country? The last part you said, I couldn't hear.
What is the
Message?
what is the message Sandesa
Yeah.
for recent country? For
Okay.
recent
Okay. The message for Mahabharata all over this thing is, again, it is dharma. See, it is between the Pandavas and the Kauravas represented dharma and adharma. Wherever I still go back to the punchline which I mentioned, yatho dharma tato jayaha. Wherever there is dharma, wherever you want everybody to live in peace, you want everybody to prosper, But if you have done it with a view to dominate somebody, to keep somebody suppressed, no matter how much of resources you put in, you'll never win a war. You see what happened in Korea, you see what happened in Vietnam, see what happened in Iraq, see what happened in Afghanistan. Is there any dearth for US resources? They lost 4,000 helicopters. You should go and see a place near Hanoi where they got a museum. They have more than 400-500 different types of helicopters. They used as a testing ground. And subsequently in the Vietnam War also, they had that the orange the thing. They used napalm. Such kind of a devastation, nobody can win a war.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Just follow dharma. Wherever
Yep.
you maintain your
Yeah.
morals in personal life, in other things also, you'll never regret. That's my take.
Any other question? Indrajit sir, Ajay Nagda, yes, you have raised the hand.
Good evening, sir. I have a question about Vyuhas.
Yes.
Sir, where did the tradition of creating battle view first begin? Was there any book related to this?
Yes, you are a good question. The source of this book, during my research, I had to really find where, because all that I knew was in Mahabharata, there was something like Padma Vyuha, Chakra Vyuha. It is there in Padma Puran. It is there in Manusmriti. It is there in Shukraniti. Shukraniti has given very extensive. And then it is there in Chanakya. In Chanakya's Arthashastra also, he gives that thing, Vyuha. And then Chanakya had a follower by name Kamandaka. He came 200 years later on. He was the last of the thinkers and military generals of Maurya dynasty. Now Kamandaka's, in my view, I have read his thing. In my PhD, I had written a lot about him. His postulations on Vyuha is much better than what Chanakya has written. But why Chanakya was famous was Chanakya had a wider canvas. He talked about statecraft. He talked about finance. He talked about foreign relations. Whereas Kamandaka stuck only, his was a very narrow band only on the Vyuha. So Vyuha has been there in a lot of these Puranas, Manusmriti, old texts and all. I'm sure it must be in a lot of others, but with my limited resources, what I could find, it is there. I can send you the bibliography if you are interested.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, adding to Ajay Nagda's question, could you find any such name of a person who could be called as the father of Vyuhas? Means the originator.
Yeah, the father of Vyuha, it's very difficult to credit one particular person with the Vyuha, but otherwise, 3 or 4 people who are known for this Vyuha formation. One is, who has written about it is Shukracharya. Shukracharya's postulations on Vyuha is very good. Kamandaka has written very well, just like what I said. And the other thing is in Mahabharata itself, Vyasa has written for somebody else, but then it is basically Vyasa's thoughts. It is there. Otherwise, there is no single person who can take credit or claim authorship for the Vyuhas. But Vyuhas have been written very well. Chanakya has written very well on Vyuhas.
Any other question? One last question, sir. Do you find that same knowledge of Vyuhas existed outside India also, because we have a long history of invasion? So was those people aware of these types of tactics adopted by the Indian kingdoms, and they also had some answer to that? Could you had some resemblance?
Yeah. I'll just add. See, the Indian subcontinent was unique. See, like I said, even in Rigveda, the things were battled. Even at that time, the armies were very organized. It is like games. You follow game certain rules, whether it in boxing or whether it in wrestling or whatever it is. But for a long time, the Indian kings kept fighting with keeping all those rules in mind. But what happened, the Islamic invasions which came in 8th, 9th centuries and all, they came in hordes, or even the Genghis Khan, which came down huge, they had no organization as such. They were just plunder, pillaging and all. So the Indian kings, I'm sure some of you are historians, we do respect to them. I'm sure they'll bear me out. The Indian kings were quite confused how to fight. It is just like you go to the boxing with some rules and all, and then you have somebody who can punch you left, right, kick around and all. You can't manage. So the point which I'm trying to say is, warfare was unique to the Indian, which was very organized, very scientific, and very ethical. So, but if you see the Western army, the Russian army, for instance, there are semblances of Vyuha. The Greek army, phalanx, they had. There are semblances of Vyuha. Maybe at some stage, there is no such thing as Aryan invasion theory now. It is all bunkum, it's all outdated. The British, the BBC has done a sort of the thing with that. So in most Western thing, they have removed that RNA. It was a counter. So most of the things have gone from India to the European the countries and all. There are semblances. In the Second World War, we've seen Russia army, their armored thing. There were formations which resembled Vyuhas. So otherwise, I am not sure.
Thank you very much, sir. One question from Devashish is emerging. Were there any military units in ancient India who could have overpowered elite history? Something I will read again. Were there any military units in ancient India who could have overpowered elite historic warriors, such as the Polish winged hussars or Roman praetorians?
I don't know about, I don't think Indian, any this thing is there. To the best of my knowledge, I think Dr. Poonam Rana or some other history professor that you are as capable. But definitely there is a thing, the Chola Empire, when they were, if you go to Cambodia, Angkor Wat, which is there, with the temples, which were established more than 1,000 years ago. It was after the invasion, they settled down there, and Angkor Wat, I have seen that place, massive. It is so huge, and the temples, the entire Ramayana which is there, and then in Indonesia also, our navy went all the way, and then they captured. That is how in Bali and other places, even today, there's so much of vestiges of Sanskrit, and also these invasions took place, and they settled down there. So that is how you find in Cambodia, parts in some Vietnam also, 17th, 18th century. That was very recent. I'm talking about ancient times. There have been evidences when it is not just ordinary evidences. Proper temples, entire Ramayana Mahabharata in Angkor Wat temple is written on 100 meters slab with pictures. Beautiful.
Thank you very much, sir. We have with us Dr. Poonam R.L. Rana from Nepal. She is chairing the session. And before I invite her, I will go through brief bio note of her. Dr. Poonam Rana, she is presently Associate Professor in Nepalese History, Culture and Archaeology at Tribhuvan University, Kathmandu, Nepal. She has 24 years of teaching experience and research work. And she is also Deputy General Secretary of the Nepal Heritage Society, working to conserve and preserve the heritage. She holds doctoral degree in Nepalese history, culture, and archaeology, and her research topic was an analytical study of costumes and ornaments in Nepalese art. She has conducted innumerable research using military disciplinary tools and published numerous articles in national and international impact factor journals. She was invited as a visiting scholar in Sichuan University, in Yunnan Minto University, in Tibet University, and National University of Singapore. To her credit, she has books like Nepalese Ethnic Costumes and Ornaments, Tony Hagan's Kathmandu, Caste, Hierarchy and Livelihood of Baji Ethnic Group, and an ethnographical study of the Tharus of Dang, Ancient Polity and Political History of Ancient Nepal, the foundation of organized political system in Nepal, history of Licchavis, the Himalayan heritage, and many more to come further. Welcome you, madam. For your
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I'm joining by my phone because laptop hanged. So my video cannot be seen, but I'm joining through the phone. So thank you, Colonel Chenji. It was such a beautiful presentation, so interesting. Despite being usually people think war is war, but this is really interesting. And Colonel he began talking about Dasarajya Yuddha, and then he talked about how in those days, the first war was fought for control of the river. So he also told us about land, water, and war was also fought for cattle. And he gave us incidents from Katho Upanishad about Nachiketa, and then the concept of war, how it used to take place outside the common area, which was so interesting, well planned. And then he talked about capturing of the king was the first aim, and then the second aim was capturing of the treasury, like that. And he also told us in such a short time, like code of conduct of the war, how during dawn and dusk the war should end, and all there were 8 codes. Then he talked about viewers, Kurukshetra. This is basically about Dwapara Yuga and Mahabharata war and the structure and form which all of us have forgotten. We have gone through Mahabharata, but we never gave importance to it, and that is very interesting. And I think we should buy his book also. It will be very interesting. And then he talked about the Padati, the small section of the army, the Sena Mukha. And interesting is we still have Sena Mukha in Nepal. We have Gulma, we have gunners within our army battalions, and we also have Bahini, like this Bahini, that, and we have different names of those Bahini even in Nepal. And Vyuha army forms, he told us there were 15 or 16 of these Vyuha or form of wars. It was mainly, it was so scientifically formed in those days, and the main focus was to safeguard the main person who was to be attacked. The aim was always there. Today we are going to attack this, and that was their aim. And though that person usually was protected in certain way. And then he also told us about principles. And then he talked about Rathi, Maharathi, Adhirati, all these people, how they were categorized and how they were, only the Rathis could fight the Rathis, and Adhirathis, the Adhirathis, and elephant, those who are on the elephant should be fighting those on the elephant. So those were very interesting code of conduct, though of course war is war, and nowadays people keep saying everything is fair in love and war, and they do whatever they want to, like that. Even in those days, even though it was a dharma yuddha, yet it was somewhere along the line there was a dharma somewhere. And then he talked about Garuda Vyuha, and there were many viewers in Garuda Vyuha where Garud shape was formed. And usually it was not like the whole war on that day would be just Garuda Vyuha. It was like they were changing forms as per the situation. That he told us very clearly. And then Garuda Vyuha was where that Bhishma did that. I saw it there on the second day of the war, and he was at the beak, like Garuda ka beak jo hota hai, uske aage, sabse aage, Bhishma was there, and Duryodhana and his brothers formed the body of the Garuda. So that was very interesting. And then there was Mandala Vyuha, which was circular in form, where Bhishma was in the center. That was in the seventh day. It was written there. It was small, but I can see it. I could see it. And Ardha Chakra, half circle, was there, developed by Arjun on the 12th day, where Pandavas and Abhimanyu was at the end, and Bhima was in the extreme right. Then there was Chakra Vyuha. There was Makara Vyuha, which was shaped like a crocodile. It was Kaurava used that on the 5th day. And then composition. And then he talked about composition and strength, how powerful viewers were formed, and then resource was necessary, aim was necessary, power, and then the form was necessary, resource was necessary, plane, area, time, warriors, all were necessary. So he explained in such a lovely way that, and actually he gave us the picture of the war, and that was very interesting. And beside that, he also shared about Bhanudatta, the king of Assam, Prajosh Raja, or how old he was, and how he was fighting from the Kaurava side, and how his eyelids ribbon was cut, and about Sailya Raja. So Dharma Yuddha there was code of conduct, but along the way of war, when someone did something wrong, the counter was, again, it became adharma also. So that was a very beautifully presented paper. Thank you, Cornel. It was so interesting. That war would become so interesting. I never dreamt of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam, for sparing time for us at a very short notice. Thank you so much. We feel your blessing hands always on us.
Thank you.
Piyush, just a minute. Just
Yes.
if you don't mind, I would like to thank personally Dr. Poonam Rana. I think she covered it better than what I did. In very brief, I took 1 hour. She, within 5 minutes, beautifully summed it up. And thank you for your very kind words.
Thank you, sir. It was my pleasure. I never thought war would be so interesting.
Yes. Now for formal thanks, I'm thankful to first our invited speaker, Colonel Dr. Vijaykant Chenji, for such a wonderful talk. And then to our session chair, Professor Poonam R.L. Rana from Nepal. To other people, audience who have joined us from Nepal, we had Dr. Nirmala Pokhral, madam. She is also associate professor in the same department of Poonam Rana, madam. From USA, we had Guru Solve, sir, and Alkesh Javeri, sir. From Sri Lanka, I'm thankful to Professor Chulani Ramukwala. She is also joining the webinar series regularly. Dr. Geeta U. Badikalia from Karnataka, Dr. Indrajit Bhattacharya from Rajasthan. Then Rishi Atre sir is also supporting us immensely in the series. My colleague, Dr. Raju Singh sir from Mohanlal Sukhani University, who always join this webinar series, and our other seminar and conferences, he has always joined. To Air Marshal Sir Pradeep Papat, and to our president of IIRF, Brigadier C. Sandeep Kumar, who has joined us. And my sincere thanks to our General Secretary, Group Captain, Raj Shekhar Mehta sir also. So once again, thanks to you all.